Okay, so Resident Evil 4. 2 years ago, the Completionist did Resident Evil 4. Well, 2 years and a few months ago, judging by the date. About a month ago, I played Resident Evil 4. Many people thought it's an awesome game. It's good. It's not great. I mean, that's all I got. That's all I got. But let's see what Gerard has to say about this.
For years now, there's been a rift between the fans of the Resident Evil franchise. One group prefers the slower-paced survival horror of the more classic games in the series, while others are fond of the more recent, action-oriented testosterone factories that Capcom has been producing. While the franchise has recently shifted back to the spooky end of the spectrum with Resident Evil 7, the initial schism between the action and horror, and in many ways, the series' most successful attempt at blending these two elements, can be traced back to one very important game, Resident Evil 4. The one that reinvented the RE formula and went on to become one of the most beloved games of the 5th console generation. Millions of people have experienced this seminal title in some way, shape, or form, but actually completing it is something else entirely, and that's exactly what I'm here to do today. Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of The Completionist. Today we are celebrating a momentous occasion. It's been 6 years since I started making videos on the internet, more specifically The Completionist, and I've been doing a video a week every single week since we started. So, how do we celebrate such a large and grandiose occasion, right? We've already hit so many milestones and we continue to do so each and every year. Well, to me, I wanted to go back to basics and what was important to me. And when I started the show, there was two games I really wanted to talk about. Mega Man X and Resident Evil 4. Now, Mega Man X was the beginning of my gaming journey when I was a kid, but here, Resident Evil 4 was the resurgence for me. I went from being someone who didn't really play video games in high school to falling back in love with video games. Resident Evil 4 made me the ultimate gamer, and today we're going to talk about why I love this game so much. Let's begin.
Yay!
Yes! Resident Evil 4 marked a serious shift in direction for the house that Wesker built. Before RE4, Resident Evil went hand in hand with the undead, pre-rendered backgrounds, and multi-layered puzzles. But RE4 bucked the trend by ditching all of that in favor of fast-moving enemies, action, a third-person perspective, action, a progression system, action, and more action.
It's basically an action
But
game.
this switch didn't just come out of the blue. The series introduced more action elements little by little as it continued. But the biggest changes of all can be traced back to one man, Paul W.S. Anderson. Oh, you remember him. He's the guy that brought us the big screen adaptations of Mortal Kombat and Dead or Alive.
Nina, it's showtime!
Dad! Not now, I'm in my underwear.
Good to God! Well, when Anderson got his hands on the rights to Resident Evil, he injected more than a few instances of excessive force into the mix.
I never watched the movie, but Phalis has plenty of things to say in the matter. Sure, he made Mortal Kombat, which is arguably a decent film. I didn't watch it, but many Mortal Kombat fans love the movie, while some others thought it was stupid, cheesy, and stuff. But when it comes to Resident Evil movies, fuck. And if Paul W.S. Anderson actually if Resident Evil 4 is inspired by the movies, I don't know what to feel about that. Because on one hand, apparently Resident Evil games from 5 and 6 some people call it bad games. But we can all agree that 7 and the remake of 2 is awesome. So it's gonna get worse before it gets better, I suppose.
While a lot of people were surprised by the movie's tone, they apparently still liked it since it made over $100 million and spawned 5 sequels. So when Capcom saw those big bucks rolling in from what was essentially an action movie, they felt a little more emboldened in taking liberties with their franchise. The proof is in the pudding. Resident Evil 4 originally had 4 proposed versions that were all rejected before the final version was set in stone. They include one version, interestingly enough, that eventually became Devil May Cry, and another version that, as it turns out, was much closer in tone to classic Resident Evils, with a spooky-ass castle full of paranormal enemies. But it's clear that innovation was a priority for the people behind RE4, since what players ended up getting in the end was the most experimental and risky game in the series since its inception. And although every aspect of the game seems altered from its predecessors,
Wait.
since its inception.
What the fuck? I played the game, but was there an option to hide Ashley or something? You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's just move on.
And although every aspect of the game seems altered from its predecessors, it still retains the quality that the franchise was known for. In fact, Resident Evil 4 is considered by many as the greatest game of all time. And even though it started out as a GameCube exclusive,
No. 4 is not the greatest. Resident Evil 2 Remake is the greatest. So far, anyway. We'll see what Resident Evil 3 has to offer.
this game was just too damn good to keep to one system. Nowadays, it's just on about every platform under the sun. I'm pretty sure that even my niece's Leapfrog tablet has RE4 on it. Let's see, Doom, Street Fighter 2, yep, there it is. Here you go, kid, have a ball. In addition to receiving countless awards and accolades and selling over 6 million copies, Resident Evil 4's legacy can be felt everywhere in today's gaming landscape. And I'm not just talking about the Resident Evil games that followed it either. If you've enjoyed any third-person action game in the last decade, you've probably got this game to thank in some capacity. It was that influential, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. That being said, it's been a long while since I've completed it, and I've forgotten most of the completionist stuff to go along with it, so we'll see how I feel after the dust has settled. But I'm sure I'll still love it. It's freaking RE4. I'll be completing Resident Evil 4 HD, the recent remastered version on the PlayStation 4, which basically represents the most definitive version of the game in a prettier package. But if memory serves me correctly, this is one of the meatiest Resident Evil games when it comes to completion. There's a hard mode to deal with, some mini campaigns to beat once the main one is done, and the possibility of having to speedrun the game for some sort of reward. Not to mention Resident Evil's most pervasive post-game activity, Mercenary Mode. Since RE4 is so heavy on the action, it's probably a whole new kind of cluster. I'm used to taking out slow-moving reanimated corpses, not farmers and cultists. Sure, I've had to juke the occasional zombie dog. They can be pretty quick. But these are driving trucks, man. These aren't monsters. They're just workers. I'm pretty sure they have a union, too. I'm not stupid. I don't mess with any unions. I don't want to get sued. In case I haven't made it clear already, Resident Evil 4 is a massive departure from just about everything the series was known for. Almost none of its features remained unaltered during the transition to its brand new style of gameplay. That includes the direction, the method of storytelling, and especially the overall tone of the game itself. Sometimes, a huge upheaval in MO can help a medium survive, and in RE4's case, help the franchise to thrive once again. The changes are evident even from the very beginning of the story. We're no longer concerned with the Raccoon City outbreak or any of the events surrounding it or the main characters, really. Instead, this game follows Resident Evil 2 alum Leon S. Kennedy on his mission to save the US president's daughter from a mysterious European cult. Ah, look who's moving up in the world. Not a rookie anymore, huh? Now you're a big shot Secret Service agent, huh? The president must have a lot of faith in you to send you in completely alone instead of an entire armed squadron to retrieve his own offspring. Soon after arriving in a seemingly quaint...
Yeah. Yeah, why doesn't the president send an army or something?
Spanish village, Leon's drivers are killed and he's attacked by the entire town. What a goddamn beginning for a game. And no, it's not because he forgot to tip at the local cafe. It turns out that everyone in the surrounding area has been infected with parasites known as Las Plagas. Now, the townsfolk are more than a little homicidal and completely loyal to an evil cult that's bent on world domination known as Los Illuminados. So, Leon's gotta find Ashley, stop the cult, and get back to American soil, where the monsters are much easier to spot, what with their rotting flesh and all. America. Now, right off the bat, the premise makes things feel a bit different than what we're used to. Instead of controlling a character who's desperately trying to escape the danger, we're playing as a guy who's diving headfirst into it. Leon is way different than the way he was portrayed during the events of RE2. He used to be a relatively normal, understandably freaked out guy. Now, this dude literally makes jokes after almost getting his pushed in by a chainsaw-wielding madman.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
You shut the f*** up, Leon. You almost died. Those two drivers did die. Did you even know their names? Leon has ceased being relatable and has become a hyper-macho superhero with abilities straight out of the Matrix. What the hell kind of training do they put Secret Service agents through? This isn't inherently a bad change, but it does change the vibe of the game completely. If the playable character is utterly unfazed by the events around him, then the player probably won't feel that much either. But it kind of works when you're building an experience that aims to make the player feel like a badass action hero instead of a regular dude. The rest of the characters reinforce the same tone too. Ashley Graham, the first daughter, fits the role of the one-dimensional damsel perfectly. Ada Wong has leaned all the way into her status as a femme fatale with questionable loyalties. And Sadler, the supreme leader of Los Illuminados, drips with more stereotypical European bad guy sleaze than Hans Gruber himself. And let's not forget everyone's favorite character, Chopper Mike. Our main man, Mike, only shows up during the very last sequence of the game.
And dies.
Apparently, him and Leon are the best of buds. And what do best buds do more than anything else? Why, cut down waves of human beings with a hailstorm of hot metal, that's what. Yeah! Resident Evil! Now, it's
too bad he dies.
very clear that the game doesn't take itself very seriously. So the few moments when it does slow down and attempt to make the player feel a bit scared comes as a breath of fresh air. It only happens a handful of times throughout the campaign, but when it does, one can't help but miss the aesthetic of classic Resident Evil and also appreciate the new vibe in RE4 all the more. The game's music goes a long way in letting the player know when it's time to run, time to gun, or time to get freaky. That being said, most of the soundtrack is fine for the most part. It serves its purpose by mostly staying out of the way while keeping the player appropriately pumped, but none of it is memorable outside of the save room theme. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure that there is an unwritten rule that save room themes must be the best song in any Resident Evil soundtrack. The sound design comes alive with sound effects though, from the individual sounds of each type of gunshot, to the crispy ass reloading foley, to the bleeps and bloops while perusing the inventory system. It all sounds clear and great. Even the dialogue, while still slathered in a thick layer of cheese, is a step up from previous RE installments.
I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
Jesus! Well, At least it was a good read. One of the most obvious changes that Resident Evil 4 brings to the table is the shift from a forced perspective and pre-rendered backgrounds to an over-the-shoulder view and environments rendered in real time. And this shift allows for angles and perspectives never before possible in an RE title. Not only that, but the locales recreated in full HD look wonderful and detailed. The usual formula of giant indoor location, underground labyrinth, secret lab is thrown out the window in favor of rural village, creepy castle, and military training facility. And while the first two are plenty engrossing, a generic island full of commandos is a bit of a bore in comparison. Rotting farms and windswept hallways are hard acts to follow when you're just coming with some dudes hanging around some tents. But make no mistake, the first 2/3 of the game offer some of the coolest locations ever presented in a Resident Evil game. In every conceivable way, this game is a different beast from its predecessors. It's just weird, man. But it's still a wonderful experience all the way through. Getting invested in a silly-ass Resident Evil story is still as bad an idea as it's ever been, but the gorgeous environments and wonderful sound design sell the necessary sensations well enough on their own. There may not be that many scares anymore, but RE4 does make you feel exhilarated and immersed in a world where one white dude can take down a whole army of Spaniards by himself.
Louis!
That guy's name was Luis, by the way, and the last thing he ever heard was his name badly mispronounced. How American can you get?
Yeah, one thing I will agree is that the soundtrack is not really memorable. Except maybe the safe room. I'm not sure if it's the same music or not, but I swear, one of the music pieces in this game sounds like it belongs to Half-Life 2. Yeah. One of the music pieces of Resident Evil 4 sounds like a soundtrack that belongs in Half-Life 2. Am I the only one thinking this?
Gameplay in Resident Evil 4 almost feels like the result of a ripple effect, wherein one or two small things were changed, which ended up necessitating change for the entire system. But somehow, instead of becoming a train wreck, every new idea comes together in a beautifully dark and violent symphony that never stops feeling satisfying from the moment the game boots up. It's decidedly not your older brother's Resident Evil. It may just be better. At its core, RE4 is still about killing monsters, solving puzzles, and making hard decisions in order to keep your sorry ass alive. But the balance between these features have been aggressively shaken up, along with the addition of a few brand new mechanics. Firstly, the change to a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective drastically changes the way you view the world around you, and the way in which you engage your enemies. You can always see directly in front of you regardless of your location, and the camera is essentially yours to control at all times. And it's a good idea to move that camera around at regular intervals, since you never know what's hiding in those hard to spot places. And with that change in point of view comes a change in overall level design as well. Say goodbye to the massive structures that took almost all of the game to unlock and fully explore. Forget about backtracking to previously visited areas with new keys in order to access new routes. RE4, for the most part, is as linear as they come. Now, once again, I don't want to come off like I'm hating on this choice. Far from it, actually. Sure, it's sad to see that particular design aspect of Resident Evil be retired, but I can safely say that RE4 on most other games when it comes to pacing. No, you don't really have to ever think much about where you're going or how you're gonna get there, but this game never comes close to feeling slow or boring. Every single encounter feels stimulating and refreshing because of how many different types of encounters the game has to offer, and how skillfully similar encounters are spaced out from one another. If you've just been hit with a massive wave of enemies, you're bound to go through a boss fight, a bit of exploration, and an on-rail sequence before you run into another mob again. Resident Evil 4 knows just how to keep the torture fresh for its players. Something else I dearly miss, though,
keep the torture fresh for its players? What?
Is the importance of puzzles. They're still around, but they're no longer the brilliant set pieces that they were once before. In RE4, all of the puzzles are incredibly simple and have no ramifications outside of their immediate area. Instead of having creepy galleries with mysterious switches and crows staring ominously down at you, now we've got a pearl pendant that can get a little dirty if you don't shoot a stick first. Hooray! The pervasive QuickTime events in RE4 don't help me feel any smarter either. Sometimes the game just insists that you participate during its cutscenes, or mash a few buttons to keep Leon from being aced out by a trap. I appreciate the game trying to keep me motivated as much as possible, but the QuickTime events feel more than a little dated. Resident Evil 4's MO of make everything simpler is also felt in the save system. You still have to save your game at typewriters, but the ink...
Hey, that music piece right there. If the music piece that was just playing, that's the music I was talking about. That music sounds something out of Half-Life 2.
ribbons are nowhere to be seen, meaning that you can save as many times as you want, thus removing yet another source of tension and resource management that the classic games used to implement. On top of that, the game will offer players a free chance to save after every chapter. Oh, and whenever you die, you don't even have to go back to the last time you saved. You get to start from the last checkpoint you reached. Not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a lateral move to facilitate the more fast gameplay that has the added effect of allowing you to laugh in the face of impending death. But it's not like you never die anyway, what with the absolutely massive arsenal at Leon's disposal. In addition to series mainstays like pistols and shotguns, you can get your hands on a fully functioning machine gun and a badass sniper rifle. This thing shifts you into first person when you aim with it, providing a brand new way to pop heads like carnival balloons. The weaponry is put to excellent use in Resident Evil 4, thanks to the complete overhaul of the aiming and shooting system. Aiming used to be kind of an oversight in previous RE titles, allowing players to kind of automatically lock onto the nearest target when they aimed. Now, you've actually got to work for that headshot, or that flesh wound against the arm, or that kneecapping, you sadistic bastard! Every single firearm includes a laser sight. Yes, even busted-ass old-school shotguns. You can now pinpoint exactly where you want your rounds to go, and depending on where you shoot the bad guys, they can react in a variety of different ways. Sometimes they're real back in pain, setting them up for what can only be described as fighting game moves. Leon can perform a roundhouse kick, a standing side kick, and that is full-on Guile's front throw. Not only do these moves look great, they deal massive damage and have the potential to stun multiple enemies nearby. Now here's a surprise. The combat knife is actually useful this time around. Yeah, there have always been those guys out there who could dominate tyrants with just a knife, but in this game, it's one of Leon's most valuable assets. After stunning an enemy with a shot, it's often a great idea to run up and start slashing to both conserve ammo and also teach a motherfucker not to mess with you. Most of the enemies...
Yeah, one thing... Yeah, the classic RE games, the knife is just a joke, and it's pretty much the worst thing ever. But RE4 surprisingly makes the knife really useful. Like, Resident Evil, it's like Capcom realized, well shit, a lot of people don't like the knife. Why don't we just make it even more... Why don't we just fix that in RE2? Can you please forgive us? Like, okay, Capcom, we forgive you. You make the knife really, really useful. And spoiler alert, that Kessler or Chrysler boss, I found out, and I tested it out afterwards, that if you use a knife on that certain boss, if you time it just right and hit him, it takes less than 30 seconds to kill a boss with a knife. What? What? playing on professional mode, hard mode. I was having trouble. The rocket launcher didn't work when I had to buy it. It surprisingly didn't work. Rocket launchers don't work, but knives does for less than 30 seconds. There's Resident Evil 2 remake using the knife strategically, and then there's just plain killing the boss in less than 30 seconds in RE4. The 2 remake knife is really useful. It has the durability for a reason. There's multiple, and you can cut off people's arms and legs and stuff. And RE4's knife is useful, but killing a boss in less than 30 seconds? It's just ridiculous.
These you come across will be the Ganados, who are pretty normal for the most part if you consider how...
Oh.
Damn. Okay, these dudes aren't normal at all. They're way smarter than the average zombie, and every now and then, they'll transform into these extremely deadly head parasite thingies. Even beyond that, the game offers all kinds of cool and new enemies, including these tortured Wolverine-looking dudes and the Regenerators. The Regenerators, by far, are the creepiest enemies in the game, and they will not go down to conventional gunfire. Just listen to the messed up sounds these guys make. No, I'm good. I'm fine. I didn't need to sleep this month anyways. That's okay. If you get lucky enough, the enemies you will kill will also drop an item for your trouble, which is yet another new feature in RE4. In addition to ammo, they can spawn some new items to the series, including yellow herbs, which increases Leon's maximum health, hand grenades, and even cold hard cash. You can loot the local money known as pesetas, or valuable items such as spinels, velvet blues, and other valuables that sound like they have stripper names, and then sell them for a profit. Sell them to whom, you're asking? Why, to the best goddamn character in the entire game.
Got something that might interest you.
Enter the Merchant.
I call the merchant the shopkeeper sometimes, as in the shopkeeper from Ruby.
This mysterious asshole, or assholes, look, I'm not so sure, he just pops up all over the game all the time, will sell you useful gear and buy the stuff you don't want anymore. It's through this guy that yet another new venture for the Resident Evil series presents itself, a progression system. Leon can purchase bigger and bigger inventory cases, as well as upgrades to his weapons from the merchant. Being able to increase a gun's bullet capacity or damage output is something that's never really happened before in a Resident Evil game, and that feels kind of cool. In the past, you may have been able to pick up an item that gave you more item slots, or something that slightly cut the damage you take. But in this game, you're growing the entire time, making you feel genuinely more powerful. It may not be spooky, but it does feel pretty awesome to spend a bunch of cash on upgrades and then dominate the next room full of unsuspecting cultists. But the merchant provides more than fine sundries. He also runs a shooting gallery minigame that you can access at different points in the main campaign. Staying on target and getting those headshots will net you bonus points and multipliers, making for a pretty fun little diversion from the main adventure. Of course, accidentally hitting the Ashley targets will subtract from your score. Do not shoot the Ashleys. The main draw of this mode for completionists are the little bottle caps that you get as rewards for getting high scores. They're called bottle caps, but they're more like little Smash Brothers trophies featuring the gruesome gallery of characters from RE4. Look at that, they even talk. Collect the whole set. Ashley pops up all throughout the campaign as well, effectively turning huge sections of Resident Evil 4 into one giant escort mission. If she takes too many hits, she'll go down permanently, and if a bad guy gets too far away with her, she'll get taken to the next dimension, which is where Nappa and the Ginyu Force are, and no one wants that. That being said, this is one of, if not the best escort system I've ever encountered.
Hey!
Instead of attempting to making Ashley's AI intelligent, They just made it really dumb and reliable. Before everyone out there assumes all this bullshit about me, let me just say this. Escort missions are hard to get right in a game. RE4 has designed it to be exactly what it needs to be when you're in these tight situations. Ashley will do her best to stay out of your line of fire, and if she does manage to get in the way of your laser sight, she'll actually duck out of the way. Thanks, Ash! There are even some spots in the game where you can command Ash to hide, completely excising the escort out of the...
I'm not sure if it applies to that particular area, but I did not know you could just basically have Ashley hide in certain places. But an escort mission, okay. Jak 2 and 3 had the better escort missions in a way. What ticks me off about Ashley in this game is that she never bothers to have a weapon or something to defend herself with. Like, I get it. I get you need to have a damsel. I'm so sorry. But I just wish that Ashley just holds a gun or something. Like, you can have her be a damsel in distress where you have to escort her to certain places, but I would have really liked it if throughout the game you do collect a gun or something for her to use, so that way in certain cases she'll have to defend herself. But I will say, but there are things I am glad with Ashley in this game. One, she's not a brat. Thank gosh. Because that would be a stereotype, to be a daughter or son of a mayor. And you could, it's pretty much a stereotype that if you're a kid of a rich or popular family and stuff, like rich family or a mayor or a president, you could end up being bratty and stuff, but she isn't bratty. Thank gosh. And another thing is that Ashley does help out a few times, which is good. The escort missions in Jak 2 and 3, they are kind of short and they're rather simple and stuff, and there's not too many hordes of enemies and stuff. I don't know. I feel like that the escort missions in Resident Evil 4 is not that great, and it could have been better or something. But there's not that many escort missions in Resident Evil 4. Thank fuck, because it would have been tiring. There are certain spots where you are completely alone and you're just looking for Ashley and stuff. I am glad that it's not the entire game. There are breathing spots.
Particularly difficult sequences. Out of all of the innovation that RE4 provides, making escorting actually fun might be the most impressive one. And even though she can still get on your nerves with her calling out for you every time you get too far from her, or every time she happens to wander like a dumb gazelle in the line of fire, do not, and I repeat, do not shoot the Ashley. It's an automatic game over if you do. It took me a long time to get those urges out of my system. Hey, there was a donut on my desk and someone took it. Who did it?
What donut?
You are eating my donut. That is my donut that I paid for. It is my only cheat day snack, and you ate it.
Oh. You mean this donut?
Yeah.
Is it yours?
Yes.
That's funny because it tastes like my donut.
Really?
You gonna do something about it? Oh. Don't shoot the Ashley.
When all is said and done, I was still hungry for more. Hell, there are only about a dozen trophies, and I only had to go out of my way.
Oh, don't shoot the water. I wanted to get all the achievements, which is there's surprisingly not that many achievements, I think. It says don't shoot the water. I tried to figure out how. I shot the water, and there was a jump scare, and I was scared.
For one of them. I'm a little surprised they didn't take this opportunity with the re-release to add in some more busy work challenges. But thankfully, the way this game is now, it seems almost perfect. Resident Evil 4 is the biggest, baddest, most unapologetic Resident Evil of its time. It somehow manages to break every rule its predecessors established while also presenting so many new solid ideas that it's managed to create an entire zeitgeist all its own. That's something that can only happen when the quality of what's offered is just that good. And once all is said and done, what Resident Evil 4 does best is create an urge to just keep playing it over and over again. Just, don't give in to those Ashley shooting urges. Not a good idea.
Don't shoot the Ashley.
That was
First
stupid.
and foremost, I am extremely relieved to report that there is no grading system in Resident Evil 4. No matter how quickly you beat the game, and regardless of how many times you've saved throughout, you will not be graded on your performance. God bless those pass-fail classes. That being said,
Yeah, I am glad there isn't a grading system in this game because it took 12 or 13 hours to finish the game. As opposed to 5 or 6 hours on normal playthroughs, or the 2 or 3 hour speedruns. Thank gosh there isn't a grading system, or else I'd crap. I would crack. This game knew that if a game's 12 hours long, it's not a good idea to have a grading system.
RE4 still has plenty of extra modes to play through and rewards to unlock, starting with what you get for beating the game for the first time. First up, the title screen changes to this nifty little scrolling image of the opening village. Memories of a mob trying to eviscerate you. Beating the game unlocks a mode called New Round, which is basically just New Game Plus. You get to play all the way through the game again, except you've got all of your equipment from the get-go, and the merchant will start the game with his full list of merchandise. Speaking of the merchant, in New Round mode, he'll have 2 new weapons available for purchase. The first one is a burst-fire handgun called the Matilda, and unlike little telekinetic schoolgirls, it is not safe for the whole family. It boasts the highest rate of fire among all the handguns in the game, and it's a neat shout-out to Leon's original upgraded handgun from Resident Evil 2.
Let's have.
Maybe yours for only 70,000 pesetas. The merchant will also have the rocket launcher with infinite ammo for sale. It costs a pretty penny at 1 million pesetas, but man is it worth it. Being able to stomp through the game with an unstoppable death machine strapped to your shoulder is a Resident Evil tradition, and I'm glad to see that it survived the transition into Resident Evil 4. And now that you've strapped up with some badass weaponry, you know you've got to have a dope new wardrobe to go along with it, which is why you're also rewarded with special outfits for both Leon and Ashley once you beat the main campaign. Leon gets his classic Raccoon Police Department outfit, which also grants him a 30% damage reduction, and Ashley gets this thing. Yeah, you ready for some extra modes? Well, here we go. Beating the game also nabs you not 1, but 2 mini-campaigns starring Ada Wong. The first one is called Assignment Ada, and it's a brief adventure in which Ada must collect 5 samples of Las Plagas from around the military training island. Ada is not just a simple reskin of Leon either. She has several techniques all on her own, including a grappling hook that lets her scale certain buildings. There are no save points and she can't upgrade anything at the merchant, but thankfully, this mode is short enough to finish it in one shot. Clearing Assignment Ada will net you a special automatic rifle known as the Chicago Typewriter, but not in Assignment Ada. You can find the gun in the other Ada Wong mode known as Separate Ways. This campaign is far longer and actually runs parallel to Leon's quest in the main game. It's pretty cool to see
Wait, what was that?
the gun in the other Ada Wong mode known as Separate Ways. This campaign is far longer and
No, it's not! It's shorter! What? No joke. It actually is shorter than the main campaign. What the hell is he talking about?
actually runs parallel to Leon's quest in the main game. It's pretty cool to see how Ada interacted with the events in the main story from another angle, kind of like Marty in Back to the Future 2. Unfortunately, the original cutscenes for this mode didn't receive the same HD upgrade that the rest of the game did, so they look pretty rough, like Back to the Future 3. Hey, it's a good movie, just not a great one. Not only will beating separate ways unlock the Chicago typewriter for use in the main campaign, it'll also unlock yet another special set of costumes for Leon and Ashley. Leon gets a dope suit that makes him look like a smooth criminal, and Ashley actually dons a full suit of armor. It makes her virtually invulnerable to every single form of damage in the game. It even makes her too heavy for enemies to lift her, proving once again beyond the shadow of a doubt that chubby kids are harder to kidnap. Did you think we were done with the main campaign? Not by a long shot. Beating the game also unlocks professional mode, which basically acts as Resident Evil 4's hard mode, with enemies being able to take more damage, deal more damage, and with much more infrequent item spawns. But your reward for beating professional mode is access to the PRL-412, an insane energy weapon that instantly vaporizes any enemy with a Plagas parasite within it, including the bosses. So if you think beasting your way through the game with an infinite rocket launcher is a bit too old-fashioned, then this is the overkill machine for you. And of course, there's Mercenaries mode, and this time around, it's an absolute monster. There are 4 different stages to play on, each with their own enemy types and layouts, and you can choose from 5 different main characters: Leon, Ada, Meathead Merc Jack Krauser, Mercenaries mainstay Hunk, and good old Albert Wesker. Just like Ada, each character comes with their own set of special moves to separate them from Leon, and every single Mercenaries character has their own loadout of weapons and items, drastically changing the way that they're played. While Leon has a nice even spread of range and power, Hunk has to rely on his trusty machine gun, and Krauser just has his bow and arrow to contend with. Oh, and his freaky monster arm of death. You can earn up to 5 stars per character per stage, which means if you want to collect every star, you're gonna have to play with each character on each stage. And while some stages seem to work for one particular character's loadout, that same person can struggle like hell on another stage. It took me over 3 hours just to get all 5 stars with Leon on this wannabe Waterworld stage, thanks to his not having any weapons on hand that can reliably stun these crazy chainsaw-wielding psychos. Even though getting every single star with every single character was a pain, the gunplay in RE4 is so well executed that it was always fun to play. This is, without a doubt, the best Mercenaries mode in any RE I've ever played, and the reward you get for getting every star isn't too shabby either. You unlock the hand cannon, a magnum capable of taking down an enemy in just a couple of shots. Even the recoil on this gun commands respect. This gun makes me want to go out and join the Secret Service too. While there's no specific prize for completing everything in the game, there are more than enough rewards peppered all throughout the experience to warrant doing just about everything, which is the way things should be. Being encouraged to keep playing such an awesome game while you're still playing it seems like a lost art these days. So I'm glad to see that RE4 has got that nailed down. From the way it gradually rewards you, to the manner in which it allows you to upgrade your arsenal, to the meticulous way in which it paces you throughout its action, Resident Evil 4 is carefully crafted to keep you invested and excited. Even after I've done all of it, I am more than willing to dive right back in to start it all up again. While I completed Resident Evil 4, there were 68 deaths, 4 campaign playthroughs, with 2 being Ada's mini-campaigns, 24 bottle caps earned, over 3 million pesetas spent, 12 trophies unlocked, 55 hours of total playtime, and 1 sitcom featuring Leon and Chopper Mike, premiering Tuesday nights at 8:30 on the CW. Set your DVRs or wait for Netflix. It's very easy to see why so many people praise Resident Evil 4 as the best game of all time, let alone the best entry in the franchise. It may not have the creepy atmospheres of the originals or the calculated and patient gameplay associated with them, but it offers gameplay solid enough to influence an entire genre and worthy enough of completion no matter what year it is. Resident Evil 4 is the kind of game to digest with friends. Playing with someone in the room in this small, tight narrative with corridors and castles and villages, with sound effects that are creepy and terrifying, with explosions and action scenes and car chases and ganados and their heads exploding into crazy parasites with Lord Sadler being around. This game is so large on such a smaller scale for gamers that it made the GameCube viable almost, aside from Super Smash Bros. Melee. This game is so important that it almost defined its own genre and created a slew of games that not only were inspired by it, but continued to build on what RE4 left for us. Without a shadow of a doubt, if you've never played a Resident Evil and you said, hey, where do I begin without needing to know anything and everything, RE4 is the perfect place to start. And with the reiterations of remastering after remastering, they've only made this game larger and more worthy for completionists. From the beginning to the end, the extra modes, mercenary, all the unlockables, this is one of those games that they got better and better about re-releasing the game with more things for it to reward the gamer as a thank you, providing more content for those people who eventually ended up playing it in the end. It's like a weird version of DLC without DLC, if you will. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my absolute completionist rating of complete it.
Complete it! If there's one thing I can agree with, is that Resident Evil 4 is a good game. Is it a great game? Almost. A lot of people, including some Call Me Johnny, loved Resident Evil 4, and I can definitely see why. It's different, but engaging. And it does have a few creepy moments, even though it's not really scary or anything. In fact, if anything, people calling this game scary just makes me raise an eyebrow. This is more of an action game. Although the regenerators are very creepy, so I'll give them that. This game is around 12 hours long, which is very different considering that if you're speedrunning, it should take 2 or an hour to finish classic Resident Evil games, including Resident Evil 7 and 2 Remake. My starting point with Resident Evil is the 7th game, but mostly because the curiosity got the better of me. Resident Evil 4, it can be a good starting point, but me personally, Resident Evil 7 is also a good starting point. Or hell, even Resident Evil 2 Remake. I mean, I've been going on and on and on with Resident Evil 2 Remake and how it's a fantastic game. It's a masterpiece. And I can imagine some people just being like, oh my gosh, again with this guy going on about RE2? Get it over with. We know you love the game. Look, I can't help it. Would I recommend Resident Evil 4? Absolutely. And Resident Evil 4 has plenty of content, that's for sure. The Mercenaries mod, I enjoy with playing as Leon and Ada, but I was really happy that Hunk is back. Seriously, where the fuck is he? And when is he gonna star as one of the main characters in another RE game? I mean, granted, that guy doesn't have much of a personality or anything, but at the same time, I'm like, who is this guy? Kessler or Kruzler and Albert Wesker, one playthrough of them and I quit. I played as Hunk and got all the stars as Hunk because Hunk is my dude. And I absolutely had to do a mod playthrough with Ada Wong when she's wearing a black leather outfit. I had to do that, just like how I did with Claire Redfield and a couple of sexy leather mods. And gosh darn, it's about 50 minutes of this reaction video. This reaction video is 50 minutes. like I said before, is RE4 a good game? Yes, I can definitely see the mark it has on people. If I started this game with RE4, things would have been different. But I started this game with the 7th game, and my second game is pretty much 2 Remake. I'm pretty much desensitized and because of Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I doubt that any other game beforehand would come close. I mean, are there going to be good games? No doubt. But yeah, Resident Evil 4 is definitely a good game. I am glad to see the knife has improved. It's shifted more to action, but it's still a relatively good game. It's different than the classic Resident Evil games, that's for sure. If you guys haven't, just go play the game. I wouldn't recommend completing it unless you want to, but some parts can be a bit of a pain. Me personally, I am glad to have tried out this game and have a good time with it. I have a couple of issues and it will never compare, but I don't regret playing it, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, that's all the time we have for today. I've gone on long enough. Please consider liking and subscribing if you like what you see and stuff. And have a good day or night, and take care.